Hi there. It is July 18th, 2023. I'm Dana Peters-Colley. I'm pretty unscripted this morning. I'm going to probably share with you some prophetic things that the Lord has. I was met with a lot of attacking dreams overnight, which usually a lot of times whenever that's happened to me, right behind it is where revelation's going to come through. So as you learn to navigate the realms with the Lord, the spiritual places with God, you learn just how to ignore a whole lot of turbulence. I think that's what he's teaching us in this season, that we are learning how to stay higher and abide higher as the world just swirls around us. So I wanted to come back to the second wave revelation that I received recently, that prophetic word about where we are, and that is for the nation of the United States, that God has bishops on the board, and the Queen is also on the board. And so the following day after I had given this word and received it, then all of a sudden things were happening. People were arising. There's been a lot more sideways stuff hitting. I think that was, the White House with the cocaine has hit, sideways, right? So it's just these different things that are coming against what the enemy's doing, exposing darkness and bringing life and light into where we are now. And so there's going to be more turbulence, is what I'm hearing. There's going to be, we're headed in, right now we're headed up, we're in the month of Av, so that is that's the time when both temples were destroyed. The first and second temple in Israel were destroyed during the month of Av. On the 9th of Av is a day that the Jews remember, and I think they even fast on that day. So there are things that go on that we may not understand, but God's timetable is working out in order to bring a new revelation to all of us down here. So we're going to get prepared and ready to meet the Lord as he gets closer and closer and closer. So it's as though the world's spinning faster, not that it's happening really in the natural, but it's happening in the events that are occurring. And so I think that the key is to get our houses ready, to bring the prodigals back, to stand in the gap and pray for people. I know in my own family, I'm doing that a whole lot at this point. God's brought some things back, and then you just continue to plow the field. You continue to stand in faith. You continue to bring love. And so it's teaching me how to love at even greater and deeper levels, because the enemy just really doesn't want to give up this territory that he's been able to get. And so I'm pulling that back in my own family. I'm pulling back things into alignment. I'm bringing love, and revelation is guiding me as I do these things. But for you and your house, I think that that's a key and critical thing, because prophets, if you read in the Word over all of life, prophets have had a different assignment than others. I used to think that prophets were 1 in 5 because of the fivefold ministry that Paul describes: the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the teachers, and the pastors. And there, I thought, 1 in 5, okay. And the Lord came to me at one point and said, no, it's about 1 in 100. So I think he can't put too many of us in there because we're quirky and a little bit strange. So we will mix up the stew a little bit too spicy. So, a lot of people don't understand what the prophetic means and is. There's a huge cost to pay to be able to walk in it. You may be given the gifting, and when you're in a corporate setting, you may prophesy, but that doesn't mean you're a prophet. A prophet is someone who is called out by God, assigned, and from the beginning. And so it's a different kind of thing that happens for someone who is prophetic. But if you sense that you are, the key is to follow the Lord, stay very deeply rooted in the Word of God. That is, I think, the biggest key, because you can really get blown off, and the enemy, when you're heading up into these levels of revelation and understanding in the mystical places, a lot of people can be destroyed and harmed and hurt, especially if you're giving wrong revelation. And so we have to be very careful with what it is that we're giving to people in this time and season, in order for God to be using us. So I wanted to also continue and talk today just about a few things that are going on in the news. One of them was that this last weekend, Netanyahu, who is the longest prime minister of Israel, at 73, he spent Friday a day out on the Sea of Galilee, and I guess he did not drink any water or liquids that day, and it was 104 degrees there, and so he ended up, the following day on Shabbat, he ended up being hospitalized. And they said, they checked him out, and they basically said, no, it was dehydration. So if we stop for a minute and we look at that one prophetically, okay, the leader of Israel, the prime minister of Israel, is up on the Sea of Galilee where Jesus ministered, and yet he's getting no water. So Israel really needs the Lord in this time, in this season. They're dry and they have no water. So we've got to be praying for Israel, and we've got to be praying for their salvation. We've got to be praying for God's purposes and plans for Israel, and that they get the water, which the water would symbolize the Word of God, so that they would have more of the Word of God in Israel in order to accomplish the tasks that they've been assigned to that are ahead. There's a lot coming for them. So pray and intercede for them in this season now, because that was a sign that the Lord is moving in Israel, but they need the water. They need to have the Word of God with them as they proceed now. They need to be listening and hearing God as they move forward. And so pray, saints, that that's what Israel does. This is huge. This is big. In 2017, the Lord sent us to Israel, and it came about pretty supernaturally. And a Jewish man, sent us for 10 days. And just before we left to go, the Lord spoke to me, and he said, there's a man coming, and everywhere you step, he's going to go. So I knew I was actually going to Israel to pray, prophesy, and pave the way. And when I got up onto the Golan Heights, I started speaking that they were to take more, that they needed to take more. And so I found out that after I came back, that Trump went 10 days after me, and they moved the UN back, so they pushed further in, and they actually they named a town after him up in that area, in that region, up in the Golan. So that's in the northern region of Israel. So when I was up there, I was just absolutely discerning that they needed to have more territory, that was something that God wanted to happen. So with all of these wars and all of these different things, if you think about it and you go into your word and you see where God has given, he has given territories to people. So he has given Israel territory. And if you look at where that territory was, it goes all the way back to Abraham, where he was given the territory, and it goes all the way up to the Euphrates, which goes through the middle of Syria. And so if you look on a map and you see where the Euphrates River is, then that whole region in that middle area, that God gave that to Abram. He gave it to Abraham. He gave it to Israel. This is their territory, which means that whenever someone else is parked in their territory, it's disruptive. They don't have peace. They're agitated all the time. So you can see that that's what goes on, and so they're fighting it, and they're fighting against it. The people that actually literally are residing there, But it's really because of that is the promise, that's the covenant that God made with Israel, with Abram, with Isaac, with Jacob, and then Yeshua came and brought even more, because we bring in the kingdom. So we're seeing that the earth is the Lord's. Think about the territory of the land belonging to God. And then God is who's going to assign who lives there, who has a rightful place to actually be in a location. I'm going to shift and talk about that with America, with the United States, because the Indian population that was here before we came here, and as I've spoken before, my family came over on the Anne in 1623, so this is our 400th year in this land. But it was originally given to the Indians, and they have been displaced. But there are heavenly rewards that they get when what they receive from God, for when they get to heaven, for what it was that they did to allow us to literally lease this land for all of these years. So, how God moves and how God works is a lot different. Remember, his ways are higher than man's ways. And so he does things differently. And we as believers learn to discern these things and follow him. He's going to show us what it is that he's doing in these different times and seasons. But as it gets closer and closer to his return and his coming back, we're going to begin to see things move and shift faster and faster and faster, in order to accomplish the goals and in order to fulfill the prophecy. Jesus is very specific that, in the Word of God, the prophecies, the things that are in connection to him are true and will happen and will be fulfilled. And then when Jesus left, we received the prophetic words in Revelation for what was coming. When John was out on the Isle of Patmos, he received the divine visitation, and that came through a prophetic prophet on the other side, basically being allowed to give him that revelation. If you read in Revelation, there's an explanation at the end when he wants to worship that person, and they're saying, no, I'm just a prophet giving you this and this. So the things are going to be fulfilled as God goes swifter and swifter now. The rivers are going to get dense. The governments are going to shift, and it's all in preparation for what God's doing in the earth. And so we can't stop what's happening. We're just watching it play out faster and faster. And so the biggest key for you that I'm hearing right now is get your house in order. Get your house in order. So get the things that God has for you to do. Be discerning. Spend time in the morning. Spend time with God throughout the day. Ask him. Seek him for answers. Go forward with how God is allowing you to move. For me, I've been in a very strange assignment. I've asked many times, can I leave? And I've heard, this. So I'm staying in it, and so following this path that God's got of what he's doing. Others don't see it and they don't understand, but I'm listening and following the Lord. I have some books that he's igniting me in, some revelation that he's bringing now, and I'm abiding in what God has. So I pray and hope, this is July 18th, 2023, I hope that you have a peaceful, good summer, and I hope that the Lord is guiding you. We're continuing, as I said, I don't think we're up to anything else than that, with what God is doing right now. As far as the United States, be praying for Israel again. Be praying for them to get the water of the Word, to abide and allow and hear and listen, especially because it's so significant now, as the nations are shifting, as we're watching God move things and do things that we haven't ever seen before. There's going to be a lot of new coming in this season. Get your houses in order, get your houses ready, and abide in God. Just spend time with the Lord. Turn off the TV and hear the revelation. Hear what God has to speak to you in these hours. I pray you have a very blessed day. I promise I'm trying to keep this short. And I hope that you are following him with all of your heart. So God bless you, my friend.